So let's do this way. Tokens, value, and then K number, or our constant, and then price. So basically, when you've got this liquidity, we talk about PulseX, we talk about how those V2 pools work, and not a lot of people can conceptualize it, really understand it. So why don't we go through the math right here? So to make this a little simple at first, we're going to put in the number 1,000 for tokens. And then value, what we're going to use to represent value on this side is we're going to assume these are stable coins. So token X and USDC. All right. So now what that does, as soon as you create this pair, is it multiplies one side by the other. So 1 million becomes our K number. Let's use commas so this is a little kinder and easier for people to see. Nice and boring for everyone. And now when it comes down to price, the price will basically equal the number of value, or USDC in this case, divided by our tokens. So in this case, $1, since the pools are balanced so nicely. Now, I always talk about, so what we'll do is we'll copy this now. We'll see. Control V. All right. So now what we're going to do here, our K number has to stay the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this number, instead of just saying 1,000, we're going to change things around here a little bit. This is going to equal this K number above, so it doesn't change. The token number now is going to equal this number divided by this number, still 1,000. So all the numbers are still the same. But now let's assume somebody comes by and they want to buy token X because it looks nice and juicy, and they're using the V2 math. This is where slippage comes in, and this is how it works. So they decide, hey, I've got $1,000. It's $1 a coin. That sounds like I can get $1 a coin. I'm going to dump it in there. That means now we have $2,000 over on the USDC side. Automatically, you only got 500 tokens out. So you paid $2 a token. That's slippage. But now price action, because of the pool, you can see the price has jumped to $4. That's a 4x because we doubled one side, which halves the other. And that is at that premise of the math. Now, this works great as long as K actually stays constant, but the thing that's happening is rather than just buying and selling, people are coming along and going, well, you know what? I'm going to add $100 and $100. And they change the K number because now this would be equaling 1,100 times 1,100. And so we have a completely different K number. So as people add and remove liquidity while they're making the market, they can change this on us. So this is where I watched the PulseX liquidity, which was 2.2 trillion, 0. That's the billions. That's the millions. That's the thousands. There. That many tokens paired with Pulse. So now the buy and burn was gobbling them up, but this number wasn't changing much because people were constantly selling into it. Then suddenly I smelt the price shift coming because this liquidity number, because people started pulling liquidity out, suddenly was basically about half as big. So we'll just divide that by 2. So there's that other ungodly number people still can't read. Let's enlarge this, change it to, nope, still has to be bigger. There, see, lovely, obnoxiously large number. So that is 2.2 trillion or 1.1 trillion. So when we got down to 1.1, the buy and burn was going crazy. I watched that number go down. We got all the way to 800, but then it went back up while price was going up because people were adding liquidity. So if they add and remove liquidity on us. The more liquidity you have, the harder it is to move price. Because in order to cause a 4x, like if this liquidity pool was instead of 1,000, it was 1 million and 1 million, to double it, you need 1 million instead of 1,000 to double it. So basically, it gets really complicated in the variables, but staying as simple as like we're at the 1.1 trillion-ish area right now. And yeah, very easily, if you can half the number of tokens that are in that liquidity and no one's adding liquidity by providing, no one's removing it, and the market stop buying and selling, yes, the buy and burn, theoretically, because I think the volume is increasing on the network, which will compensate for as price goes up to keep it kind of constant for the burn rate, at least for a while longer. We could easily see one of these 4Xs happen in the price because half the token supply could be bought out and destroyed. But as the buy and burn's working, more people could continue to provide liquidity. That will slow down the 4X process. And then the market obviously will be buying and selling, because as I did a math update on my crystal ball to try and explain like my buy and burn that runs basically liquidity pool after liquidity pool in series to see what the action does with a bunch of different variables. Oh, there's Pat. With a bunch of different variables. We looked at it, and I showed how basically in my crystal ball, I think when I was looking at it with its last reasonable settings, a 24x in the next 2 years with my math, adding extra little fancy variables that probably aren't right, but getting a little more speculative. I think within basically we're done about. Well, yeah, I think within the next 2 years, like the buy and burn could build in a lot more than a 4x if the volume continues to spike on the network, which as we head into the bull run and we get our bubble during price discovery and then the collapse, volume will be going nuts. But eventually volume will slow down, but I think we are going to see a lot more than a 4x out of it, speculation-wise. But hopefully that helps. I probably went way too boring and in-depth with this, but nice, simple math. So I'm going to be quiet for a moment. Do you have any questions on anything I've gone through here?
We like simple math. We like to. I'm just looking in the chat here too. Any I think the only question I would have is what would change based on volume? What would change? Like, are there? Maybe it's good to talk about the assumptions and stuff here. I know you're trying to keep it simple too, but are there things that would make things better and price go up more and stuff like that, or things that would risk it or make it not as attractive, or go less than average volume, stuff like that?
So basically the factors in this is we're looking at the volume of buy power that this whale has, the automatic buy and burn drunken sailor. And as our drunken sailor buys every day at tops and bottoms, the more volume in there, the more money in his pockets to buy with. So obviously that increases the burn potential. But now as you push price up, well, you need more money to burn it. So that's where I'm going to, so far, I think the market's keeping it kind of priced with the volume increases, because the volume spiked from averaging 10 million a day to closer to 50 all of a sudden. And then price also 5x'd, but the buy and burn didn't accomplish that 5x. But by 5xing the price, well, you now have 5 times the money, but the thing's 5 times as expensive. And oh, well, the burn rate is now kept the same. So it's interesting how the market so far for these pumps has decided to price it to keep that burn rate the same so far, instead of getting ahead of the buy and burn, as it's now sitting, I think, on 3 whales, 4 sharks, and 8 dolphins. I'd have to go double check. So obviously, the more volume we see in PulseX, the more people want to use it, the more it's getting even through routing or even aggregating, because all the other dexes bring even more activity. Volume go up. Volume go up, buy pressure go up. That's amazing. So those are 2 main factors we look at, is price and the amount of money available because of the amount of volume. Those are basically our 2 big variables. And then right behind that is what kind of liquidity are people providing. So as it got ready for price to move up, over $1 trillion got removed from liquidity providers, not by the buy and burn, not by the market buying, but by market makers going, you know what, I don't want to give away these tokens for this price because I think they're about to move. And so off the market they came, but then another 200 or 300 billion came back on the market after all the buying, because it was sitting at about 1.1 trillion, and then the price shot up. And then a bunch more tokens came back on, kind of stabilizing it. So as we see reduced liquidity means easier to upside or downside, depending on how the market's feeling. And those are the variables we have to look at to keep an eye on, is basically where's the market mentality for providing liquidity. The thicker it gets, the more the market makers are telling us that they're expecting crab market. They think price is going to go sideways for a while. As soon as it starts decreasing, that's them saying, you know, we're pretty sure we don't want to give away our tokens at this price anymore, because as long as it's going sideways, we're making gravy. When price goes up, we get hit with impermanent loss. So it's kind of interesting to watch them go, because their sentiment is not always right, but it's a nice little tell sign of what might be about to happen in the market. So paying attention to the size of liquidity that's available for the token, the amount of volume, and the price. That is what all goes into that buy and burn rate.